according to classical school, what's going to determine that real wage, what's going to determine also that money wage, is the wage bargain between laborers and entrepreneurs. And Keynes's point is that it's not open to labor. That's not an option for them to be able to, the power exists with the people that are offering the job. And so oftentimes in your political discussions with other human beings such as yourself that you may disagree with, you'll find that one thing that I find over and over again is that there is just a general failure to understand what is at stake, a general failure to understand what is on the table when you're talking about macroeconomics. And Keynes sees what is at stake. My previous neighbor, to steal a line, he has since moved, but he said this was, he said it was like a ball of Band-Aids held together by Scotch tape, what America is. And so labor is not in a position to determine what the cost of living is Keynes's basic idea. And so the two observations are that labor seems to care more about how much they're earning per hour in terms of money than they do about the cost of goods that they are purchasing using that money. And that if their purchasing power goes down because of a price increase of goods, they're not going to get on their bikes and clog up a freeway. But if their purchasing power goes down because of a loss in the money wage that they earn for their job on their paycheck every 2 weeks or every month, then they would, in fact, be more likely to get on their bikes and clog up a major arterial freeway. Whether they would do or not is a separate question. Whether they would do or not is not an economic question. Whether they do or not is a political question. That's another thing that gets lost. You should never give up the idea that economics is subservient to politics. Money matters. Money does, in fact, represent, and the market economy works, and the price mechanism is an amazing invention on par with the alphabet. But politics trumps economics, especially when you're living in a society that's incredibly blessed with natural resources, or if you're living in a society that is both incredibly blessed with natural resources and also in possession of guns and willing to jump on planes and go kill people to take their natural resources, which is not an unkind way of explaining America. It is other forces which determine the general level of real wages. It is other forces that determine the cost of living in this country. It is other forces that determine the purchasing power that you receive for the labor that you do. It is other forces that determine that, besides the wage bargain. It is other forces besides the laborer. Labor does not have a good deal of power. And laborers can't just wake up in the morning and wave a magic wand and all of a sudden the cost of living decreases. However, we do have people in our system that can achieve something like that. And at what cost is that? A lot of things to say, but think about that idea of the money wage versus the real wage. The money wage is that notional amount, that here's a number that you get. And the real wage is something that actually matters. It's got nothing to do with numbers, but yet has a relationship to numbers, like daily caloric intake. And so that, I think, if you're going through, just keep in mind. And so then he goes into this big, long section about involuntary unemployment and his wonderfully long-winded, terrible to read, hard to understand definition of involuntary unemployment, but if you listen to what I said earlier, that's pretty much what it is. Then he runs through some interesting quotes in John S. Mill and Marshall, and you can just read all of those. I'm at the point I'm making a bunch of notes. This is like I've made so many pages of notes on this chapter alone. And so I'm attacking again the area where he goes into discussing the Robinson Crusoe economy. And so I'm going to make another video which is going to finish up my YouTuber videos on chapter 2, and I'll head into chapter 3 on effective demand, and then into chapter 4 on choice of units, and I'll just go through this little thing and see what happens. So hopefully, hopefully this will help you to understand Keynes a little bit better.